and welcome to a new vinyl review column. I have 8 records for you this time around, including 1 or 2 box sets. As well as looking at the record itself, I'll be including my own thoughts in terms of mastering. But let's get straight to it. First up, we have a box set from Roxette, which rhymes incredibly. Now, this one is, and I'm looking, but this one is called Bag of Tricks. I have been thinking this has been called Bag of Chips. I really don't know why, it just keeps sticking in my head, one of those things. But Bag of Tricks it is. It's a sort of archive collection, and it roams over 4 slabs of vinyl. I only found out recently that the pop rock duo Roxette were only second to ABBA in Sweden in sales terms, pushing out 75 million records. I never thought that the duo held such significance. Nevertheless, I was certainly aware of them as a musical force and their impact on the charts, with the likes of The Look, Listen to Your Heart, Joyride, and It Must Have Been Love. And when lead singer Gun-Marie Fredriksson sadly died from cancer at the end of 2019, it was King Carl Gustaf of Sweden who made a statement noting the loss. Let's not forget, this band mattered both to Sweden but also to millions of fans. And those fans will be happy about the contents of this 4 LP collection that arrives, as I say, in a pizza-style box. What you get here is a host of rarities, including demos, alternative mixes, Spanish language versions, and bonus tracks from 1986 to 2016. So that means a host of Abbey Road sessions from 1995, including Listen to Your Heart and The Look, Studio Vinden demos, including Every Day and Always the Last to Know, and the Swedish single version of Dangerous. Ideal for fans, the mastering on this set is big, bold, and rather epic in its presentation. Hence, there is a sense that the levels are not strictly neutral here, but neither are they pushed too high. That is, there's a sonic enhancement here, a slight boosting across the frequency range to give each area a strength boost. Bass is thus heavy, massy, and full of heft. The mids are full and packed with detail, but lack a sense of fragility, I would say. Treble doesn't really have time or air to frolic here. In effect, the power pop direction of this music takes precedence. Next up is a 25th anniversary from Paradise Lost and Draconian Times. This one is, well, it's in a gatefold sleeve. I've heard music fans refer to this band as US based, but no, they stem from that exotic Yorkshire locale, Halifax. Originally, the band consisted of vocalist Nick Holmes, lead guitarist Gregor McIntosh, rhythm guitarist Aaron Adey, bassist Steve Edmondson, and drummer Matthew Archer. And they've been at it since 1988. The band has shifted their presentational style, which has shifted the tone and direction of their music. They moved from doom to death metal, goth, and even rather trancey down tempo. This album formed part of a sort of trio with 1992's Shades of God and 1993's Icon. So this album from the Music for Nations imprint could easily be packaged into one of those phases. Goth being the primary underlying vibe, but goth of a high tempo with plenty of noise. Nevertheless, goth with a heap of melodicism and rhythm that makes the music here eminently approachable. The track Forever Failure ramps up the metal-esque doom atmosphere, with the following track, Once Solemn, increasing the tempo. There's a tidal effect on this album as the tempo and moods subtly change with each track. As for the mastering, well, there is a certain claustrophobia around the mid-range, but I sense that this is an active decision to give the guitars especially a closed-in, suffocating presentation, adding weight and density to the sound. There is a distance between the drums and guitars and more delicate secondary percussion like cymbal taps. Cymbals can easily be heard. I would have liked to have heard an infusion of space to add a greater sense of drama, but hey, I'm being a bit greedy. The band, I'm sure, gets the sound it's been looking for. This one's a blast from the past. This is from the UK-based Silver Screen record label, and it's devoted to a children's TV series from the 60s, Fireball XL5. Beautiful, isn't it? Let me show you the rear. There's some really nice model work here. I just need to show you the rear. Look at that. Isn't that a cracking little model of the Fireball XL5 rocket itself on its launch ramp, I must add. Continuing the company's release schedule to focus on the works of Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, Silver Screen has released a double album gatefold for the classic children's TV series Fireball XL5. This is the fourth such release in that series. And as a fan of all things Anderson, this release gladdens the heart, I have to say. Fireball XL5 was a TV series that launched towards the end of 1962 and would run until mid-1963. But the series was set in 2062, so watch out. The focus of the show was the titular spaceship, and what a magnificent beast it was too. It was commanded by the wonderfully named Colonel Steve Zodiac, a member of the World Space Patrol, no less. He and his colleagues would trot around the screen in glorious super marionation, an advanced puppetry system of the time. The gatefold, sealed by a paper band, no shrink wrap here folks, offers numerous photo images which flow around a suite of liner notes, including a track-by-track analysis, a list of musicians, plus mini essays on the music itself, alongside thoughts on the TV show. I never knew, for example, that the TV music included output from something called an Ondes Martenot. I hope I've said that right, apologies if not. It was a French invention from the 20s, a sort of proto-synth, but in fact a valve-powered electric keyboard that produced alien-esque sounds. That instrument features within the 24 tracks on this LP. There are 16 episodes covered, including the main Fireball XL5 theme, all under the auspices of Barry Gray. Also included is the pop song Fireball, performed by Don Spencer, and a minor hit in the UK, spending 12 weeks in the UK charts and peaking at number 32. The mastering for this is open and dynamic and wholly lovely, with the resonance in the upright bass and real texture within the brass section. Next up we have a 12-track 10-inch release. This is a reissue from the German audiophile label Bear Family, and this is a reissue of a Japanese version of the Rock and Roll Story from Conway Twitty. Let me show you the rear of this before we go any further. And hopefully you can see those Japanese liner notes in all their glory. Although many will know him as a country music star from his work in the 70s and 80s, Twitty began as a rock and roller back in the 50s. He decided to enter the music business after hearing Elvis Presley do his thing, and he wouldn't be the first. If he hadn't, he would probably become a professional baseball player of all things. He actually walked away from a contract with the Phillies. His path to country stardom started in 1965, but this album was recorded in 1962 and featured a collection of tracks originally recorded from 1958 to 1960 on MGM. This new edition features 4 bonus tracks that were not heard on the original album, and they are Platinum High School, I Vibrate, From My Head to My Feet, what a title that is, It's Only Make Believe, and Long Black Train. The original album itself is a collectible, but the rarest pressing of the original LP was the 10-inch version, the reissue that you can see here, that was only ever released in Japan. Hardcore collector Marcel Meersman loaned his copy to Bear Family for reproduction, and it's worth it as well, with all the rear printed liner notes, as I've shown you, being in Japanese, although the track titles are in English. There were only 500 copies of this LP pressed by Bear Family and on light blue vinyl as well, and it's only available from Bear Family's online shop, and I'll put a link in the description for you. Mastering on this release is pretty good. It's not amazing, and that surely reflects the source material, but it's pretty decent. So spinning great balls of fire, there's a slight warmth to the mids as the upper mids are rolled off a touch, as is the treble. The frequencies are pretty well behaved. There's no edge to the mids or any barking issues here, while the bass, which is a tad woolly, is restricted and harnessed so that it never becomes boomy. Bear Family give you a chance to hear the music instead of battling frequency in discipline, which is a good thing. Next up we have on Columbia the new album from Evanescence, and this one is called The Bitter Truth, and it is, let me have a look here, also on a gatefold sleeve. This album began before the pandemic kicked in, but 4 songs into the project, everything changed. The title reflects the latter, but also family losses experienced by the band itself. There's a sense of pushing through rather than standing still and allowing yourself to be defeated. Lead singer Amy Lee stated, and I quote, "I want people to come away from this album feeling hope and empowerment and strength. Something that inspires me a lot in life is people who have overcome great obstacles," end quote. So the group is back for a 5th time. The new album from the band is a 12-tracker double album gatefold, sometimes thrown in a goth pigeonhole. I would personally describe this band as more alt metal with grungy power pop overtones thrown into the mix. And that hard-hitting punch is much in evidence here. I wanted to include the background and quotes because that's how you need to listen to this album, frankly. It's a record with a hard-hitting emotional point to prove and a statement to make about themselves and others. So the vocal performance has a fiery core around a strong rocking momentum. It's a rock album in spite of what's going on, in spite of heartache and loss. The tone can be a little dated in its presentation. That is, this album appears to be less about breaking creative boundaries than making an emotional statement to the fans. This is where the band find their sweet spot. This is where their hearts are in musical terms, and they're obviously comfortable there. As for the mastering, well, the mastering is rather interesting. This is a bass-heavy LP, low in noise, but with rolled off upper mids at the extremities of the dynamic range, giving a warming effect to the overall presentation. The effect is slightly claustrophobic, which of course might have been the intention. Next up is a reissue of the 1980 album Live from Fleetwood Mac, and this has been reissued from Rhino, and it comes as a box set. This is the outer sleeve, and within, let me just show you that. We'll take it all the way out, but you get a rough idea. Let me just show you the back. Same sort of design. There you go. So the Fleetwood Mac campaign continues, and with some gusto, via this very presentable set offered on a 12-inch square slipcase. Released originally in December of 1980, it was the band's first live album. Recorded mostly during the world tour for the album Tusk between 1979 and 80, the original release was a double album featuring songs like Dreams, Go Your Own Way, Rhiannon and Don't Stop. And before we go any further, there are exceptions here. Don't Let Me Down Again was recorded in 1975 during the tour for the album Fleetwood Mac. Dreams and Don't Stop are from the band's soundcheck in Paris. Fireflies, One More Night and the cover of the Beach Boys' Farmer's Daughter were all taped in California. This was during a rather cozy show for the band's crew, family and friends. This newly released reissue packs in the double album on vinyl, but also includes 3 CDs. The original album also appears on CD, but you also get an hour of unreleased live music recorded between 1997 and 1982 on the 3rd CD disc. More than that, vinyl fans will be happy to see a bonus 7-inch single featuring the previously unreleased demos of Fireflies and One More Night. Oh, and let's not forget the included booklet, which includes rare photos, a full list of dates for the Tusk tour, plus a history of the live album by writer David Wild. As for the mastering, live albums are notorious for their poor sound reproduction. They are not geared for sound quality in any form. They serve as a postcard of an event, warts and all. Nevertheless, some live works sound better than others, and while not perfect, this is one of the better forays. The audience doesn't swamp the music, thank goodness. The soundstage is rather open and spacious. Sometimes it's a bit too spacious. So what do I mean by that? Well, sometimes you'll hear a drum strike on the right-hand channel, and then you'll hear the echo bounce off a far wall on the left channel. Bass itself has kick, and the mids are relatively broad and detailed. A thumbs up. Next is Good Feeling, the debut release from the band Travis, and this one has been issued by Kraft. They're nice boys, the smiling face of snarling Britpop. That was Travis. To me, they sounded like a heavily diluted Radiohead. Coldplay light, even. A heartfelt outfit connected to the same substrata of Britpop that also connected bands like Ocean Colour Scene, Embrace and Cast. This was the band's debut, released in 1997. The group were actually created in Scotland, Glasgow actually, in 1990, but art school tended to get in the way, so the guys had been at it, at least off and on, for a while before this debut hit the streets. There were Francis Healy on vocals, with guitar supplied by Andy Dunlop, drummer Neil Primrose and bassist Dougie Payne. The first notion of career dedication appeared in 1996 via the EP All I Want to Do Is Rock. Later, this album was given serious attention, as can be shown by the application of name producer Steve Lillywhite. From it appeared singles such as Happy and Tied to the 90s. The album showed their Britpop connections with backwards glances at classic bands like the Beatles and the Kinks, but it never really dwelt there. You never really felt that Travis were mired like other Britpop chart bands of the time. Maybe this is what opened their general appeal and gave them a sense of individuality. More than that, while there was grit when required, there was also plenty of hooks to keep the attention. As for the mastering, I like it. There's a satisfying tonal balance from this master. The dynamic range is broad, the upper mids offer all the detail you need from this high energy presentation, while instrumental separation is quite admirable. It was easy to hear the strumming of an acoustic guitar amongst the percussive racket and vocal streams on All I Want to Do Is Rock, for example. And finally, another box set from Three Doors Down, one called The Better Life. This is on the Republic label, and this is a 20th anniversary edition. Time does fly, folks. This album appeared in the noughties, so you wouldn't really call the album grunge, I suppose. Yet there's flavours of the genre on this release, which was originally released in the year 2000. Even so, there's probably more hard rock or alt rock, if you want to be specific, that gave the band a freshness, making the album a roaring success at the time. The group came from Escatawpa, Mississippi, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, and grunge was all over them in the early days as a regional band. They started out as a trio with Brad Arnold on vocals and drums, alongside guitar-toting Matt Roberts and bassist Todd Harrell. They were joined by a studio drummer who allowed Arnold to concentrate more on the singing. Chris Henderson also joined later on guitar. The reason they were brought into the Republic label was due to exposure, specifically a period playing in New York at the rather famous or infamous CBGB's club. That holy mess of a dive that vomited US punk and its depraved spawn. Now, I said that this album was a roaring success, didn't I? And yes, I really meant that. And the album itself hit platinum 4 times, which ain't bad. Not a perfect record, the songwriting is good if a little bit inconsistent, yet it announced the band to the public, exhibited heaps of potential, and added enough metal vibes to attract the rock crowd of that moment. This edition arrives in a pizza-style box and also includes a third vinyl disc called the Escatorpa Sessions. This is a green vinyl disc recorded in Mississippi during 1996 and features 7 demo versions from The Better Life. It also includes 3 previously unreleased tracks, a lithograph, and a booklet. Mastering is refreshingly balanced for an alt-rock outing. You get delicate highs, organically weighty bass, lots of fine detail in the middle, sorted. And that's me done, folks. Thank you very much for hanging on to the end of the video, much appreciated. Thank you for your support, and if you could do me a big favor and continue that support, please, by clicking on the like, and if you haven't done so already, the subscribe button, if that's okay, please. There are a host of links in the description below, including links to my website, all kinds of social media, my Facebook group, and lots of other bits and pieces. Check it out. I'll be back with another video very soon, so until that time, bye bye for now.